Today we're going to do another video on heart health. Today it is also being given by Dr. John Chubak, if I've said his name correctly. And the title is, You Could Have This and Never Know It. I'm guessing, given by the looks of the picture, is that it's to do with plaques and the fact that by the time you have built up enough plaque, you will never have felt the effects of it until you start getting chest pain or you are compromised in some form of function. I think that's what it's going to go into. Again, selected by someone else, so I don't have any viewing bias. We'll get into it.
There's a silent disease running through almost everyone you know, and it's the reason that heart attacks and strokes are still the #1 killer in North America, more than all cancers combined. It's called...
So that's the thing. So it's actually still the biggest killer globally. Last time I looked, over 19 million deaths a year. Cancer is second with 12 million. Yeah, despite the great increase for cardiovascular disease, it has no way near the coverage that cancer does. I don't know whether that's because cancer normally affects people later on in life. I know it's a broad spectrum, but the point I'm going to make is that when people normally have cancer, it's normally a finality and that's it. Whereas cardiovascular disease, with the advancements in modern medicine, the fact that someone can have a heart attack, stroke, angina, all these complications, be treated and live as though they've never suffered from any cardiovascular or heart conditions. And I think that's why it may not get the coverage that cancer does, because it seems to be more treatable, because it's more of a broad spectrum and it's an insidious condition in terms of it takes decades to manifest and it's not just an abrupt thing.
Called atherosclerosis, that plaque that builds up quietly inside your arteries year after year, slowly. The scary part? Most people have no symptoms at all until the day something catastrophic happens. By your 40s, almost half of adults already have plaque forming. We even see the fatty streaks being laid down in childhood inside of arteries.
So this was a thing that actually baffled me, was that there was a paper, and there's actually a textbook on a lot of people who've either been killed in a car crash or early deaths in the war, who signed up to the army, for example, and it shows fatty streaks in people who are as young as 5. A lot of people in their teens already have fatty streaks that are well developed and on the way to have ASCVD, which is atherosclerosis. And people, we keep saying it, is that because you can't see the effects of it until it becomes too advanced, that people just completely ignore it. And it is something that if you do act upon it within the early years, so increasing that physical activity, improving your diet, whether that be reduce saturated fat, increase the amount of fibre, increase the amount of healthy fats, so omega-3s, 6s, etc., will mitigate and slow down that disease progression.
Even if you eat clean, work out, and feel completely fine, this isn't something you guess about. You test for it. Ask your doctor for an ultrasound of your neck or your legs, or a coronary calcium score, or imaging of your abdomen.
So I've just done a video on a calcium score, and again, they are very useful, but it's a double-headed sword. So if I was to get one, I'm 31 and I've got no calcification within my arteries, it means nothing to me. I carry on as I would do because I'm not expected to have any calcification there. And what it means is when you have a plaque, basically it will form a bone-like material which becomes calcified, and it will show up as deposits on a scan. So if mine come back as positive, which is something that shouldn't happen at my age group, then we need to intervene. Why have I got calcification and bone deposits within the coronary arteries, for example? And the same goes on the other side. So if I was to get this checked and I was 75, I'm sort of expected to have some form of bone within the arteries because I've obviously lived a long life, and all the damage, etc., through diet and physical activity, there's got to be something that's going to show up. So it doesn't really change management there. But if that was to come back as 0 when I was 75, then it probably goes down the route of I probably don't need to be aggressively treated because whatever I've done for the previous 75 years is effective, and that's what I'm going to be doing. So calcium scores are really good if you've got access to them, and they show up certain extremes within populations, but I think as a blanket thing it doesn't do too much. Blood testing is the biggest thing, so you'll get your cholesterol profile in the UK. If you go to advanced clinics, then you can get ApoB, LPA, you can get CRP, you can get HbA1c, which just gives you a greater metabolic picture. It gives you a greater insight into how your body is utilising cholesterol, what is the chance of it forming a plaque, and becoming dislodged in the future. All them things, it gives you a better insight.
Because these tests can literally let you see plaque before it's too late. Plaque's the real disease. Think of it like fire, whereas blood pressure and cholesterol are just the smoke. And the good news, if you catch it early, you can slow it down, stop it, or even reverse it. Don't wait for a heart attack to be your first sign. Find it early, address it early, and fix it early if you can. And you might just add decades to your life.
So one thing, I actually don't know whether it's true anymore, but the first presentation for a heart attack for most people used to be, well, in the majority of cases, death. So most people would be found to have a heart attack and actually have died within their sleep, for example. I think that number's come down to maybe 30 or 20%. I need to look at the figures for that one. But the point is, it's a silent killer because you don't feel it until it happens. When it does happen, what happens if you have a heart attack, for example? Does it change your life? It changes it so drastically because we need to give you medical management. A lot of people are against medication, but if we don't stabilize you in that way, then there's a high chance of reinfarction, which is having another heart attack, especially within the next 12 months. I made a video the other day in terms of, is it just the person being affected or is it other family members too? And we've had one in my family. So my dad, he had 2 heart attacks from the age of 50, 51 from memory. And it affected everyone. It affected my mum more than anything because their lifestyle grew up around alcohol, going out, socialising in them aspects, especially the culture we're from. And then to go from that to completely changing your lifestyle, so removing certain things such as takeaways or reducing them, definitely. In my dad's case, he cut out alcohol because that was a big driving factor for cardiovascular disease. And when you take them things out, it completely changes your mentality then, because you can't do the things that you may have once enjoyed and you didn't see the damage on it, especially when you can see other people who on paper tend to have a worse lifestyle and physically look in a lot worse shape than you, who are going by without any complications of their health. And I think that's one hard thing for anyone with conditions where you don't see the actual symptoms until it's too late. So I bring up about me a lot of times, but I think it's a good reference to use. So I've got diabetes. I do have poor cardiovascular biomarkers. I work as hard as anyone else to make sure that I reduce body fat, increase lean mass. I do a lot of aerobic training. I do all these things, which is probably a lot more work than the average person, to stay seemingly and biochemically unhealthier than them. But that's the luck of the draw. I could have been born with a lot of abnormalities and different things. So, you know, that's the luck of the game, if you're being honest. But one thing I would say is so I'm looking forward in terms of my future health with my dad. So 20 years in the future now, if I were to neglect my health, there's a good chance I'd probably have a heart attack. Is there any chance that I can either completely mitigate me from having a heart attack, or if I were to have one, can I reduce the complications of that by offsetting it with leading a healthier lifestyle in my 30s, 20s, 40s? And definitely the answer is going to be yeah. There's too much evidence against that not being the case. But yeah, I thought it's a decent thing to drive home to people if they can. Prevention is key. It is better to prevent something that might never happen as opposed to clean up the pieces on something that has happened and you don't know how it's going to happen. So that's one big thing, is you might say you are at an increased risk of having a stroke or heart attack. You don't know what extent you will experience a stroke or heart attack. So if you have a stroke, you don't know what part of the brain it will affect. You don't know how much blood supply will be cut off to that part of the brain. So are you not going to be able to speak or move a certain part of the body for forever? With a heart attack, how long are you going to be without oxygen in that heart muscle? Is it going to be 20 seconds? Is it going to be a minute or two, which will then impair the function? And then later on in life, you develop heart failure. You have a poor quality of life because you've got no aerobic capacity, because you can't build up that strength anymore because you've killed too much of the heart muscle. These are all the things that you're weighing up. It's not merely about preventing yourself from having a heart attack, it's what type of heart attack and stroke can you have in the future. It's not to scaremonger people, it's just to advise people on what I'm doing and what I think people should do as well. So if you've got this far, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.